Hello everyone, I want to make a video like that for a while. How good are Soulsborne games by 2025 game standards? I will start with Bloodborne, because I recently replayed it fully. If you like videos similar to that, type in comments on which game would you like to see a similar video. Okay, so first I want to talk about the most obvious one. Bosses, design, their features, gameplay, how good are they and other small stuff. In my humble opinion, of course, Bloodborne bosses by 2025 bosses standards are extremely shitty. Well, at least 95% of them. First of all, I am not really a huge fan of their design. I will never stop laughing at people who say Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3 are Game of Thrones with a bunch of night simulators. Yet these same people praise Bloodborne bosses and mobs design. Let's look at some of those bosses. Amazing and stunning design. Werewolf, female werewolf, electro werewolf, werewolf with head, tall humans with snakes, regular human, sexy lady, spider, grandma, and many disgusting mamba jambas. Or aliens with interesting design. For example, I really like Amygdala's design, but as a whole, Bloodborne boss and basic mobs design is not something mind-blowing, even compared to Dark Souls 2, in which enemies are mostly cool looking knights. Okay, their visual is 100% subjective, some like it and some not, but nearly all Bloodborne bosses gameplay wise are just straight up garbage. I have multiple issues with Bloodborne bosses. First of all, nearly every single dipshit can full HP one-shot you, like straight up one-shot you. Bloodsucker will his grab attack, Amelia will have wombo combo that micro-stuns you to death, Lawrence will his stomp move in his phase 2, Rom will have meteor rain, Ebrietas will have head slam or will have lasers, Mikolaj will his laser beam, Ludwig will his move when he jumps in the air and after 3 seconds he jumps on your head, or will his moonlight charge move. This stupid firedog can one-shot you with his charger hit and many more. Second, despite the fact nearly all of them can one-shot you, they are a pushovers. I ironically say that 95% of all Bloodborne bosses are a punching bags, and if we remove those "oh you got outplayed" moment, against most Bloodborne bosses you have to really try hard in order to die. Let me give you some quick examples. Absolutely every single beast type enemy can be stunlocked to death, and they just physically won't be able to fight back properly. Monster type enemies are straight up dumb. For example, Mergo is just swinging her hands randomly, and you can just mash her back without getting punished. Against Amygdala, the only difficulty is camera angles, but if you have a big weapon, he's fucked. Moon dies fast and she can do well something. Rom literally is a punching bag, against whom the only difficulty is her dumb one-shot meteors. Witches, celestials and living dildos are a joke, against whom you just physically won't be able to die even if you try it. While bosses like Mikolaj, a near infinity chasing simulator with one-shot magic, shadows, aka another Souls shitty excuse of a multiple enemies as a bosses, Lawrence and Ebrietas will multiple one-shot hits can go fuck themselves. And because of that, in this game there are at best, no joke, 5 good or decent bosses. Maria, Orphan, German, Logarius and maybe Father Gascoigne. Even though many people won't agree with me, I will say it anyway. Bloodborne bosses by 2025 standards on average are shit tier. Yes, for example, Ludwig might have a decent, interesting or beautiful moveset, but what the hell is the point of that if he dies before he can show at least a third of his moveset? And this can be said about nearly every single boss. As much as I like German, I have to admit that if I on purpose didn't start multiple times during his face transformations, he would be dead in less than 40 seconds. And that's one of the biggest problems of Bloodborne bosses. They either die die absurdly fast, and during a fight you have the "oh shit, he died," or bosses are getting staggered to death, and in mid-fight you feel bad for them, because 95% of the fight they just stay on the ground. All these bosses are disgusting abominations or straight up helpless pushovers. So in 2 words, despite the fact in this game there are few good bosses, among whom 2 of them are in my top 10 best Souls bosses, objectively speaking, besides 5 bosses, this game boss fight wise is not the most impressive one by 2025 standards. Now locations and how interesting they are for exploring or how memorable are they. Honestly, even though many people won't agree with me, Bloodborne locations visually, excluding Kenhurst, Forest, Research Hall and Fishing Hamlet, are not the most memorable ones. Level design and architecture wise, I have almost no complaining about Bloodborne, well, mostly. For example, I like the level design in Old Yarnam, and I also like the regular Yarnam's architecture, but I have 2 main complaints about Bloodborne locations. First of all, sometimes devs really try to make locations design way too overcomplicated. What I mean by that? Well, I'll try to give you the best example. Let's take Forest. This is one of the, if not the biggest location of this game. But you know what was the most memorable part of this location? A boss fight with shadows. Why? Well, because during a fight with shadows, my thoughts were, please, God, don't let me die against them. I don't want to run a marathon towards this boss over and over. In this location, there is only 1 bonfire, and there are 2 or maybe even 3 shortcuts to this boss, and unfortunately, I found none of them. And each time I died, I had to run this whole location, because I didn't find these hidden shortcuts that for some reason are hidden extremely well. And in this game there are many locations that are way too overcomplicated, and in my opinion this overcomplication adds nothing good to these locations. Now my second biggest problem, these locations are extremely similar to each other or are completely unmemorable. Let's take for example Dark Souls 1. In Dark Souls 1 nearly all locations visually look completely different from each other. For example, location full of lava, sunken kingdom, tomb, a place full of traps, forest, a regular city and many more. And because of these differences, Dark Souls 1 locations were very memorable. But in Bloodborne we have village, another village but with corona, church, city but more bloody and other stuff. Or they are completely unmemorable locations. For example, a location of Amygdala and a very small location before Rome. Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 locations have nearly identical problems. Many people call Dark Souls 3 a grey abandoned castle or ruin simulator, which is true, but for some reason, these same people close their eyes on Bloodborne locations, which are black screen abandoned lab / church simulators, or a city with wild zoo simulator. In my opinion, unless you are a hardcore gold decorations lover, locations for you will be at best at okay level, because they either are ungodly annoying or are very similar or completely unmemorable. Now I want to talk about combat system itself and weapons. First, combat system. Unlike for example Dark Souls 1, which was more about you being patient, waiting for a boss to finish his 2-hit combo, hit him during opening and repeat this until boss dies, in Bloodborne it's a bit different. Yes, you could pick dagger and be more aggressive, but it was more like an optional choice. While in Bloodborne there is no optional choice. Like it or no, this game forces you to play it as aggressive as possible. If you play this game like a little bitch, you will get wrecked. You can't hide behind a huge shield while blocking entire wombo combo of bosses. You have to be the one who moves first. This is game's combat core mechanic. Play it aggressively and win. You have rally effect, aka if you took damage, you can get it back by hitting bosses, you can parry humanoid bosses, and while reposting them, not only you can do a decent amount of damage, you can fully heal your grey health bar. And in theory this combat is interesting compared to even Dark Souls 3, but I would call Bloodborne combat system as a wasted potential. The reason of that is a bit simple and most of you won't likely answer of that. There are, oh my god, at best 4 bosses against whom you can fully realize Bloodborne's combat system's potential. Against these 4 bosses, you can play aggressive without devouring them alive. I don't know about you, but I think that after fighting bosses, your thoughts shouldn't be, oh shit, he already died. Even though in theory, combat of this game is interesting, bosses and especially basic mobs won't allow you to fully enjoy it. And about that a bit later, this is comparable to, let's imagine that in Hazan, bosses would die in 20 seconds. No matter how interesting is combat system in Hazan, if you can't fully use it, it simply doesn't matter how good or fun is combat system. So our sad potential of Bloodborne combat system is not fully realized. Now weapons. Honestly, I can say the same thing about weapons in Bloodborne. They are a wasted potential. First of all, yes, I am fully aware that in this game nearly all weapons have different moveset, and not nearly all of them are 2 different weapons with different moveset. But here is the thing, why would you even use, for example, fast stance for Ludwig and Stone Hammer that barely does any damage, and its attack speed is not that much faster compared to heavy stance? Or why would you use long range mode for Saw Cleaver that slightly does more damage compared to its normal version, yet it's slower and does much less damage, especially against beast enemies? Or why would you use Pisa Cutter in one-handed stance, while in two-handed stance it allows to just, Now the problem number 2. The damage of these weapons is very weird. In this game, unless you use the Trust Me Bro Source or Super Duper Omega Galaxy Fucker Bloody Gems, it's very obvious which weapons are shit tier and which ones are good. For example, I will never understand people who say Ludwig's Sword is the best weapon in this game, while in fast stance it's slower than Saw Cleaver yet does less damage, and in two-handed weapon per hit it does just a bit more amount of damage than Saw Cleaver, yet it has much less DPS compared to Saw Cleaver. Yes, this weapon has very strong charge hit, which can even stagger most bosses, but A, most bosses won't allow you to fully charge this weapon, and B, let me show you what you can do with a Saw Cleaver with almost the same amount of time. Or let's take Tony Truce. Why would you use Electro Dildo as a weapon when you can just buy Electro Paper and add it on a Saw Cleaver? Or why the hell would you use Ken against, for example, Lawrence? Yeah, in this game there are much more shit tier or straight up useless weapons than strong ones. My final problem with Bloodborne weapons is that updating more than 2 weapons is a pure pain in the ass. Okay, so if in other Souls games you could simply buy tiny chunk and update any weapon, in Bloodborne for some dumb reason you can't buy bloody chunks. No, I'm not joking. You can only buy 1 to 6 update materials. The only way to get them offline is by grinding them from werewolves over and over, which takes insane amount of time, and even in online it's not the easiest task to farm them because it consumes insane insane amount of time. So once again, why the hell devs didn't add the bloody chunks in store? Why they prevent players to experience with different weapons? So yeah, in 2 words, weapons and combat system could be much better than they are right now. Now I want to talk about a thing on which almost no one talks about in this game. Stagger and non-existing poise of this game. Many people, including myself, are upset about the fact that in Dark Souls 3, because of non-existing poise, you can stunlock to death some enemies, while they also could stunlock you to death. Yeah, in Bloodborne the situation is much worse than in Dark Souls 3. Before I explain how weak points and staggers are bad, let me show you some clips. Yeah, weak points and especially staggers in this game are a very shitty part of this game. Why? Well, simply because, like I said earlier, if you realize that this specific boss has a weak spot, it's GG for them. Let's take for example Pearl and One Reborn. Their weak points are their legs, and if you hit them for a while, you will do very dirty stuff to them. You might say that a weak point is a good thing, because you are rewarded for finding a weak point of a boss. Well, in theory, yeah, but here is a huge problem. Excluding Father Gascoigne, it's very obvious what is the weak spot of this boss. For example, head and arms for Amygdala, belly for Ludwig, legs for Pearl and One Reborn, head for Ebrietas, arms from Amelia, and many more examples. But in my opinion, if you give bosses a weak spot, you also should either make this weak spot not abusable, so that a player won't just keep mashing this weak point over and over, or give this boss a very high amount of health, and some stagger resist, so that a boss like Pearl or Ludwig won't helplessly lay on the ground 90% of the fight, while dying in less than a min. Also, if you think that stagger and micro stuns work only for bosses, you are very wrong. In this game, absolutely any homeless can micro stun you with each swing, and if you got hit by 2 mobs with a bit delay, you are fucked. Plus, this can also happen during some boss fights, for example against Lawrence or Lady Maria's Wombo combo. So I think that weak points and especially absolutely zero poise with its near infinity micro stuns are a very shitty parts of Bloodborne. And I honestly think that weak spots make this game much worse than it should be. I want to talk about how good is the story and lore of this game, because it's an excellent specific topic. Some people like near infinity hardcore alien Zex fetish and Lovecraft style lore, and some people don't really like that. Instead, I want to talk about what is the strongest side of this game. In my opinion, the strongest aspect of Bloodborne is gothic cosmic horror art style, and I would say this game is overall very stylish. Bloodborne art style wise is a very unique game, not just among Souls games, but generally in gaming media. If you look at most Souls games excluding Lies of P and maybe Thymesia, all of them are either medieval fantasy games or some apocalypse world in the future. But Bloodborne is a gothic style game during Victorian era, which till this day is a very unique thing. I will say this much: after Dark Souls 1, this game has the strongest atmosphere among any Souls game that I have ever played. This cosmic horror atmosphere is a very strong aspect of this game, if actually not the strongest aspect of this game. Plus, this game is very stylish. All those clothed NPC and humanoid bosses drip, the weird character transforms your weapon and other stuff. It all looks very stylish and memorable. Also, this game has a very weird music in a good way. I suggest you to listen to Mergo's theme. It's a very strange yet memorable theme. Plus, this game has a lot of banger themes. For example, Mario Maria, Ludwig, German, Lawrence and many more. Now I want to make a plus minus small conclusion. In my opinion, by 2025 game standards, Bloodborne is at the very best okay game. This game has one problem, on which pretty much everyone can agree with. Bloodborne just doesn't have a strong side besides gothic style art design. Let's take some Souls games and what are their strong sides. Hazan has the best combat system among any Souls game. Dark Souls 1 has top tier locations. Dark Souls 2 has insane replay value and weapon creativity. Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro has amazing bosses and other stuff. But let me ask you one simple question. What is the strongest side of Bloodborne compared to other Souls games? Bloodborne is just an okay game, which by 2025 game standards is far from this amazing masterpiece myth that Souls fans non-stop spread. If you haven't played Bloodborne, I would say that you haven't lost much. More than that, I honestly think that unless you are a hardcore gold lover or hardcore gothic gears lover, you will probably not like this game. Or at best your thoughts will be, well, I just finished this game and it was, well, okay I guess. Also, just so you know, recently I saw a few review videos about Bloodborne. And is it just me or YouTubers who said Bloodborne is a flawless, amazing 10 out of 10 masterpiece are hardcore dick riders? No, I'm not joking at all. Why are all of them so goddamn afraid to say Bloodborne bosses are garbage? Why they're so afraid to say the Old Hunter DLC excluding Maria and Orphans boss fight is very annoying, or sometimes it can go fuck itself. As much as I like the atmosphere and the lore behind Fishing Hamlet and Research Hall, gameplay wise, both of these locations are such an insane pain in the ass, it's just not even funny. Especially my bigger thanks for the person who at least duo fish giants. Yes, it's not as bad as Elden Ring's dick sucking, but still. Why people don't shut up about Bloodborne being this mythical amazing masterpiece game? Once again, Bloodborne is not the worst Souls game that ever existed, or even worst game, but please stop acting like Bloodborne is some amazing masterpiece, especially by 2025 game standards. Well, that's pretty much it. Type what you think about my video. If you like it, press something under it. With this, I'll say bye bye to you and I'll see you next time.